and welcome to the second of our webinars. This is Myths, Rumors, and Urban Legends. So welcome to this presentation. We're glad you're here. It's for sonographers and for MRTs, but we're mostly talking about myths related to sonography today. As you know, we're the College of Medical Radiation Technologists of Ontario. My name is Linda Gough, and I'm the Registrar and CEO here. And so we're going to be speaking today about items that are on our website. So our website has all the information that you need to know about. And of course, being the regulatory college, our mission is to regulate the profession, to serve and protect the public interest. All the videos are also on our website, so under the resources section, videos. So if you don't get to catch the webinar live, then you can always go and look at it later or show it to your colleagues. So today we're talking about myths, rumors, and urban legends regarding the regulation of diagnostic medical sonographers and all the changes that come into effect on January 1. And the myth number one is there's plenty of time. It doesn't happen till January 1. No, we're now in the last quarter of 2018. This has been our transition year to get everybody in and registered. And so we're down to the last 3 months. Time is running out. And so you need to get your application in as soon as possible. Many people did as we suggested and got their applications in earlier in the year, and thank you all so much for doing that. But when you submit your application, there's a lot of steps that we go through. We have to review your application to determine whether you meet all the requirements set out in the registration regulation. And if yes, then your application will be approved and you'll be notified by email. If no, then we tell you that your application has to go to the registration committee, or if we need more information. And the ones that need to go to the registration committee are individuals who are not currently practicing, so are not eligible for grandparenting, and completed a program outside of Canada. So it's the international applicants who aren't currently practicing that need to go to the registration committee. And there might be other reasons, such as a criminal offense or an offense related to the practice of the profession. So the suitability to practice is another area that the registration committee would be reviewing and making a decision. So these things take time, so you need to get your application in as soon as possible. You can check the status of your application through the member and applicant portal, so that has been there. And here's Nolene. She is our registration coordinator. This is what we do when we're checking a straightforward application, one that is going to become registered or get approved for registration. So the first thing we do is check it for completeness and accuracy. And if necessary, we contact the applicant. If there's incomplete information, if somebody forgot to sign a form, if you didn't tick the right boxes, and that is taking a lot of time. About 80% of the applications that are coming in are incomplete. And so then our staff have to take time to contact you, and then the applicant has to submit the correct information. We also rename and organize all the scanned documents. The professional conduct team do a suitability to practice review. And then it comes to my team, and we review and approve. And then we notify you of the approval by email. Now, this can take, on a straightforward case, 6 to 12 weeks. So because we've got so many applications coming in. And here's our registration team. We've actually got people from professional conduct helping out as well. And so as of yesterday, there were 2,275 applications that were complete and approved, 648 under review, and 645 still waiting to be reviewed. So we're putting in an administrative deadline, because although our staff are working overtime and getting through these applications as quickly as possible, what we don't want to have happen is people to submit their application in December and expect that we're going to be able to process it in time for them to work on January 1. So we're saying that if you don't have your application in by November 16th, there is no guarantee that CMRTO is going to be able to review your application and approve it before the end of the year. That's even if you're a straightforward grandparenting applicant. So get your applications in, because there's lots of people, over 600 in the lineup ahead of you. So keep that in mind. It's we're doing a lot of work, and so physically there's only so much we can do. The second myth that's out there is, don't worry, it's all fine. I'm not worried as long as I get my application in by the end of December. I'm sure there'll be a grace period to become registered after January 1. I'm sure CMRTO is going to be able to process my application within 2 weeks. No, we can't. And it's not going to change. There is no grace period. So, you know, that's okay not to worry. If you're not currently practicing in Ontario, then you do have time. But if it's a problem, if you are currently practicing and you want to practice come January 1 and thereafter. So we effective January 1, it's the law. The law changes. This is not CMRTO's bylaws. This is the law of Ontario, and it changes so that in order to be legally authorized to practice the profession, then you need to be registered with CMRTO. And the big change that happens is, in order to be legally authorized to apply sound waves for diagnostic ultrasound, you must be registered with CMRTO. So it's going to look exactly like the MRTs have for over 25 years now. So the amendments come into force, and then as of January 1, only members of CMRTO, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, the College of Midwives of Ontario, and some of the College of Nurses will be authorized to apply sound waves for diagnostic ultrasound. So this is happening, and we've got all our application and registration steps to go through. And we talked a little bit about application, but it's not enough just to apply by December. You have to register. So you have to, there's 2 steps. You have to first apply, then we're processing your application, and then the final step is to pay your registration fee. And that is prorated to your birthday. And then you have to maintain your registration throughout your career from that point on. So, of course, once your application is approved, you don't have to register right away. And you can save money by waiting until later on in the year. But we're recommending that you register no later than early December. Because, again, we want to make sure that you're registered and able to work by the end of the year. And there's no change in the fee because it's prorated on a monthly basis. The fee is the same whether you pay it on December 1st or on December 31st. And we do have the fee calculator that's available online, and you'll be able to go in and check your fee when you get your email to say that you are approved. We already have registered. We have 692. So you guys really don't have to worry because you have completed everything and you are registered and legally able to practice. So you guys are laughing. The other 1,588 who are approved, you're probably waiting until later on in the year to pay your fee, and that's just fine. just make sure you do it. Don't forget about it at the beginning of December. And you can see how the numbers have changed. As of June 30th, sonographers, we had 109. So the numbers are starting to get a lot larger for our newest specialty of diagnostic medical sonography. Myth number 3, this doesn't apply to me. They won't know if I'm not registered on time. My employer doesn't care. This will go away. And it doesn't apply to vascular technologists or echocardiography technologists. So it's not going away. This is the law. And your employer also has an obligation to adhere to the legislation that governs them. So under the Regulated Health Professions Act, employers have an obligation not to use unregistered workers in place of a regulated health professional. So they can't hire unregistered people in order to replace regulated health professionals. So that's an important component that they have. Employers also have an obligation to make sure that all their regulated health professionals hold a current certificate of registration with their regulatory college. And you know that for those of you who are in managers' roles, or you have to give your manager proof of your registration, and they come around and ask for it. Employers are accustomed to these requirements. This is nothing new for the employers. It's new that it's sonographers, but they've been doing this under the Regulated Health Professions Act, Public Hospitals Act, and the Independent Health Facility Act for MRTs for decades. So they're quite familiar. They've got their processes established, and they are ready to start running with this on January 1. And they cannot allow individuals who are not registered with CMRTO to work on January 1 and thereafter. So there's a risk, if you're not registered, that you'll get sent home, that they won't be able to have you work. So it does apply to all sonographers who are going to be practicing after January 1. If you need to confirm your registration to your employer, it's available on the public register. And the public register is updated within minutes after you pay your registration fee. So that's the final part. And it is automatically uploaded through our portal to the public register. So then it's open for everyone to see that you're registered and that you're registered in the specialty. We don't issue a paper certificate or a membership card. So if your employer asks for proof of registration, then you can print off the public register information and they can put it in their file. So they're certain that, that everybody is registered. So a common question is, what happens if I'm not registered on January 1? Well, you won't be able to work. And if you do work without being registered, then there's some legislation that kicks in. The employer is required, if they have to discipline you, if they terminate your employment or suspend you, they are required to file a report with the CMRTO. We would issue a cease and desist letter. We could start proceedings with the Provincial Offences Court for illegal practice, and we would seek an injunction against you for practicing without being registered. And then, of course, you know, that's just the legal side. There's the damage to your professional reputation and your future employability. So these are all things that you need to keep in mind. And we do have on our website, we have taken 2 individuals who were found to be practicing medical radiation technology without being registered with the college. And we took them to the Ontario Superior Court for illegal practice, and we were successful. So these individuals were found guilty. And their names are on our website because this is public protection, to let the public know that these individuals were practicing without being registered, and to notify us if they start to look for work as a medical radiation technologist in the future. Myth number 4, students can work before they're registered provided they're supervised by a registered sonographer. Well, that certainly is the case now, but it's not going to be the case effective January 1. So effective January 1, again, only registered members are able to apply sound waves for diagnostic ultrasound. And in the past, of course, the sonography students have been known to get jobs after graduation and before they successfully complete their Sonography Canada exams. But there's a problem now because there's an exemption under the Regulated Health Professions Act that permits students who are part of an approved program in the profession to apply sound waves while they're supervised by a member of the profession. When that program ends and that individual is no longer a student under that program, then the exemption no longer applies. So there's this gap between the end of the program and when the individual writes the examination and becomes registered with the college. So what we do, and this has been the way it's been for MRTs for many, many years, is we work with the applicants. We have our application process that starts before the end of their educational program. And we make sure that we've got everything taken care of. So as soon as we get those exam results, all we need to do is have the individual pay the registration fee and they're registered. And that can happen very quickly. It can happen same day or within a couple of business days. So that's where we've worked to try and minimize the time that the students are not able to practice. But of course, it depends on the timing of the end of the program and when they write the exam and when they get their exam results. So this is something that employers will have to keep an eye on now. And you can always hire them in other positions, but they're not going to be able to apply sound waves once they're no longer a student in the program. Myth number 5, professional regulation is the same as certification. And we're hearing this a lot. You know, I have my Sonography Canada credential. That's enough. I don't need to be registered with CMRTO as well. Once one has expired, then I'll become registered with CMRTO. No, they're not the same. They're not interchangeable. Other people have said, you know, my ARDMS credential is like an international license. And so I've already got an international license. I don't need to be registered with CMRTO in addition to that. Well, no, that's not true. Professional regulation is not the same as certification. And your membership with Sonography Canada or ARDMS or any other group is not enough to practice in Ontario as a diagnostic medical sonographer in the areas of general, cardiac, or vascular effective January 1, 2019. So you can't rely on that anymore. And that's because the regulator, we have a very different function. Our function is public protection, and we have mandatory registration and mandatory membership. So if you are practicing in Ontario, our jurisdiction is just Ontario. If you're practicing in Ontario, then you must be registered with CMRTO in order to practice. And the other thing the regulator does is we set the scope of practice, the code of ethics, the standard of practice, and all those entry to practice requirements in law. And that's where that public protection piece comes in. So only the individuals who've met the registration requirements that are set out in the regulation are going to be able to practice the profession and apply sound waves to the public. So that's the first step in protecting the public, letting only qualified individuals practice. Now, the associations and certification bodies, they're member service organizations, and they have voluntary membership. They can, and in two cases for sonography, they set and administer the certification examination. And then they also support and serve their members through education, advocacy, providing PLI, and conferences and other member benefits. So here's all these organizations that are in your life, and CMRTO is the new one, and not always welcome because we're the mandatory protect the public group. But we are an important group, and you do need to make sure that you maintain your registration with us because we're the regulator and we are established in law. There's mandatory registration. We have mandatory quality assurance or continued competence programs. Our standards of practice are enforceable. If you fail to meet the standards of practice, then that is grounds for sanctions from the discipline committee. And our role is public protection. Then, of course, we've got the OAMRS, the Ontario Association of Medical Radiation Sciences. They're an association, Ontario only. They have voluntary membership. They don't do any exams, but they have continuing education courses, they have advocacy, they provide PLI, and for MRTs, they're linked with the CMRTO, the National Association. Sonography Canada is an association, it's national, they have voluntary membership, and they also have a certification examination, and that's the important part. They have continuing education courses, conferences, and also PLI coverage. The ARDMS is a national association with voluntary membership again, and they issue certification exams in all the subspecialty areas. So they're very much more focused on certification. Now, people will say to me, but it's not voluntary membership because my employer requires it. And that is true. In the past, in the absence of regulation, employers have looked to these certifications and credentialing as evidence that their sonographers are competent to practice. And that's a great way of demonstrating competence. So what will be happening over the next little while, and you probably want to talk to your employer to see if they still want you to have your credential from Sonography Canada, or if the CMRTO registration and perhaps the OAMRS is going to be enough. So things are changing, and so you'll need to talk to your employers around that. But before you resign from the associations, because we know it's expensive, and all these certification bodies, you know, think about, does my employer require membership or certification in a particular area of practice? Where will I get my PLI? And am I going to be covered appropriately? What other value do I get from my association? You know, there's education, conferences, job postings, and networking at the professional level. And will I want to practice outside Ontario sometime in the future? So, you know, CMRTO is only for practice in Ontario. And if you're going to go to another province, then you might, or another country, you might want to consider if you want to maintain your certification in the certification bodies. Okay? Myth number 6, regulation replaces certification. So a little bit of a variation on our other myth. And so some of the questions we're getting, are ARDMS exams illegal after January 1? Am I still allowed to take the ARDMS exams in 2019? And will I lose my specialty certificates? Well, registration with the regulatory body demonstrates that you're currently authorized to practice the profession in the jurisdiction that you're in. and that you will do that, you'll competently do that in accordance with the regulator's standards of practice. Certification, on the other hand, is a demonstration of knowledge or competence that's awarded by the certifying body. And when you do an exam, it's a point in time. Registration with a regulatory body is an assurance of your continued competence. And so that's how they both work. And also, as regulators, we rely on certification as a way of individuals demonstrating competence to come into the profession. And of course, you can use both designations. So here's Annette's. She's got a lot more, but I just took the two relevant ones. She has her DMS. She's registered with CMRTO, so she can use DMS. And she also has her CRGS from Sonography Canada. And of course, if you're going to be practicing the profession when you're in your clinic or your hospital, then you just want to use your DMS. If you're writing a paper for your journal or putting in a proposal to present at the conference, then you might just want to use your CRGS, but you can use them both. So our council has approved the Sonography Canada examination as our approved exam in the specialty of diagnostic medical sonography and also in the relevant area of practice. So that's general, cardiac, and vascular. And so this is a registration requirement, and this came into effect on January 1 this year, 2018. But also for 2018, our council approved the ARDMS examination, and that was just so we get through this year, because there are individuals out there who took the ARDMS exam before the Sonography Canada exam was available. So we'll get those individuals in, and then effective January 1, Sonography Canada is going to be the only examination that will meet the registration requirements for practice with CMRTO or for registration. Now, employers can still request or require their sonographers to complete specific training and certification exams in other areas like pediatrics or MSK. And I believe ARDMS has some other specialty areas that Sonography Canada doesn't have. That's still okay. You can still do those examinations, but you can't rely on them for registration with CMRTO. And of course, certification beyond our registration requirements still has value for you as a sonographer around the specializations and also professional development. Myth number 7, CMRTO registration gives me the authority to do all the examinations. So we hear this a lot. Once I'm registered, can I do more procedures than I do now? Other ones are, if I train on new procedures, do I have to update my competence verification form? And my colleague only does procedures in a certain area, like breast ultrasounds, and now can they go and do other examinations? Well, no, we have to look at the whole thing as a whole. So our certificate of registration certainly gives you the authority to do ultrasound examinations, to apply sound waves. But we have a condition on our certificates of registration that says that you can only practice in those areas in which you have the education and experience and the knowledge, skill, and judgment to practice safely. So if you don't have that, then you can't go and start doing pelvic ultrasounds if you're only trained and experienced in breast ultrasound. And you also have to meet and maintain the standards of practice of the profession. And here we have practice standard number 8 that talks about members having, maintaining, and applying the necessary knowledge, skill, and judgment to ensure safe, effective, and ethical outcomes for the patient. That you have to maintain your competence in your current area of practice and refrain from acting if not competent. So that's another important thing. So if there are changes in your practice, if you're practicing in a different area, your patient population has changed, there's been advances in technology, then yes, you can learn. You can get the education and experience, and often that will be on the job training. And that's okay. You can do that. It's maintaining your competence. And the place to record that is upgrading your skills and training on new procedures is in your quality assurance program. So all this contributes to your ongoing competence. And but there's no requirement to notify the registration department when you learn new procedures within your specialty. But you certainly can use all that education and learning as part of the QA program. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies that. Myth number 8, entertainment ultrasound centers will be shut down. And we all know about this entertainment ultrasound gender identification. This is not going to happen due to these changes. And the reason is that the regulation of sonographers is under the Regulated Health Professions Act. And that is related to the delivery of healthcare services. So we're regulating sonographers. We're not regulating the use of the technology or the use of sound waves. Now, having said that, our members need to have an order in order to be able to apply sound waves for diagnostic ultrasound. And so our orders are coming from physicians, nurse practitioners, and midwives. But under CPSO's policy, physicians are not permitted to order an ultrasound for non-medical reasons. And so they have a policy which is currently under review. So if you get an opportunity, go to CPSO's website and you can comment on the consultation that they have for this policy. And they have an automatic review schedule. So this policy is currently under review. And there's a public consultation, so get your word in there. But so sonographers need an order from a physician, and physicians under the CPSO policy are not permitted to order ultrasound for non-medical reasons. So in order to view the fetus, to obtain a picture or video, or to determine the gender of the fetus. And so it will be, or it could be, professional misconduct for a sonographer to perform ultrasound procedures without an order. And in order to do that, in order to have that order, you need an order from a physician. So basically, entertainment ultrasound for sonographers could be professional misconduct. And so we have a publication that will be coming out about that. Council just discussed it at their last meeting. And we will be having a position on this so that sonographers are aware of it. But will we be able to shut down the entertainment centers? No, that is a government decision. So those are our busted myths for today. We're a little early today. And I don't know if we have any questions that have come in. Janet Maggio is helping me. So if you have any questions, we can talk about that. The thing to take away for today's presentation is apply to register as soon as possible and no later than November 16th, so that we don't have plenty of time anymore. And don't forget to register no later than early December. So those are the two things you need to keep in mind, and tell your colleagues, because you know, we're hearing anecdotally that people are saying, oh, I'm going to wait till December. No, you tell your colleagues about this and you show them this video so that they understand. And they're really very lucky to have people like you to go and make sure that they're able to continue their practice come January 1. So thank you to all of you who are helping spread the word. We know that the people who are engaged in these webinars know about it, are engaged in the process, and I'm sure you've got your applications in or are already registered or approved. So Janet, any questions?
Yes. The first question, you might want to repeat it for the microphone,
yeah.
is regarding, is there going to be a sonography scope of practice, and where will that be?
Okay.
And so I'll let you answer.
Sure. So there is a sonography scope of practice. So the question is there going to be a sonography scope of practice, and where will that be? And yes, there is a sonography scope of practice. It is in the Medical Radiation Technology Act that we hope will change its name to the Medical Radiation and Imaging Technology Act come January 1. And we've talked about this in previous presentations, so you can go back and look at the very first one we did in March, because that's where we talked about the scope of practice. So the scope of practice statement is the practice is the use of ionizing radiation, electromagnetism for MRI, and sound waves for diagnostic ultrasound. So it is right there in the MRT Act, and it's to perform diagnostic and therapeutic procedures. So that's how that is working. It's one scope of practice with all the forms of energy that our members use. Okay.
Next question is, it's a good question. Is the process for MRTs who are then applying as sonographers, is that expedited at all?
So the question is the process expedited for MRTs who are practicing as sonographers? The applications are coming in and we are approaching them as they come in. So we've got a list, and our staff are going to the earliest one that's on the list, right? So they're just like a lineup. They're coming in like a lineup. So we're not doing any triaging and expediting of any kinds of applications. What we are expediting are the ones, or not expediting, I shouldn't say that. We're treating everybody the same process. The ones that have to go to the registration committee have a much longer process. So we take those out of the queue, and they are then put into the registration committee processes. For members who are adding sonography, then you've already paid your fee. So once I approve it, and this happened the other day, I approved an application from a current member in radiography, approved the sonography part, and it gets put on the public register right away. And an email is sent to you to say that yes, you're now registered in sonography as well as your original specialty. So, so we're not doing any staging. Everybody is just being processed in accordance with the lineup and when they came in. And that's why we're saying get your applications in by November 18th, because our staff are working overtime. And right now what we're doing is we're starting to review applications that were submitted mid-July. And so we've managed to get rid of a lot of the backlog, but we need to get that down further, and it's coming. But applications are still coming in at the rate of 10, 12, 15 a day. So, you know, there's still a lot to be going through. And we will do whatever we can, provided you get your application in by November 15th. We'll be working weekends, evenings, pulling all-nighters, but come after that time, there's no guarantees, because there's too many things beyond our control. When applicants submit documents that are not signed and don't get back to us in a long time, you know, that's 670 that are currently under review. Many of them were waiting for documents to come back, and so it takes a long time. And also, there's a lot of phone calls, a lot of questions coming in. It's the same staff. So when they're answering somebody's phone call, we had a phone call the other day from an individual who'd been approved and then called to say, so what do I need to do now? And but it's all in the email. So read your emails carefully, because when we're answering your questions on the phone, the staff are not processing applications. We've got a limited staff supply here. We used to have 2 people taking care of registration, and now we have 8. And they're working all these extra hours to get this huge amount of applications through. But it's good. It's all working very well. And so that's it. I think we'll just one more. Oh, that's right. One more slide. Janet's reminding me. The fall webinars. So we've done our first 2. And the next one is on Thursday next week. Professional accountability and getting to know your college. So we'll be talking about that. And we'll be talking about registration, quality assurance, and complaints. And so these are the processes that apply to all our members in all specialties. So come and learn what your professional obligations are as a member of a regulatory college. And that's it. Thank you all so much for your attention. And don't forget to check it out on the website later on today. Thank you.